The Gospel of the Eight-Ball Dragging Humanity Kicking and Screaming Back to the Land of the Living by John Zerga Jr. The Social Prophet Chapter 1. The plague. There is a plague upon the land, not the kind that leaves corpses in the streets. That would be too honest. This plague leaves the bodies walking around, commuting, ordering DoorDash, posting Instagram stories about their best life. The meat keeps moving. The soul clocked out years ago. I call it the social Black Death. The original Black Death killed a third of Europe. Brutal, efficient, democratic in its cruelty. It took peasants and princes alike. But at least when it was over, the survivors lived. They danced in graveyards. They drank too much. They made terrible decisions with strangers because tomorrow was not guaranteed. This plague is different. This plague does not kill you. It just makes you wish you were dead while scrolling through photos of people pretending they are not. The numbers are in. The Surgeon General has declared loneliness a public health crisis. Loneliness increases mortality risk by 26%. That is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Deaths of despair have surged over 400% since 1999. Suicide, overdose, alcohol-related. The average American spends 4 hours and 37 minutes daily on their phone while reporting more isolation than any generation in recorded history. We built the most connected civilization in human existence, and we are dying alone. Here is what happened to us. Somewhere along the line, we decided that the worst possible outcome of any human interaction was discomfort, not injury. Not death, not financial ruin. Awkwardness. We have built an entire civilization around the avoidance of the awkward pause. The unanswered text, the rejected invitation. The moment when you say something stupid at a party and have to stand there, in your body, feeling the stupid radiate off you like heat from a manhole cover. That moment. That is what we have decided is worse than loneliness. Worse than dying alone in an apartment where no one notices for 6 days until the smell gets through the walls. We have done the math. We have run the numbers. And we have decided, collectively, as a species, I would rather be forgotten than embarrassed. This is insane. This is the most insane thing humans have ever decided, and we once thought the sun revolved around the earth and that bloodletting cured diseases and that Creed was a good band. You know what the plague vector is. You are holding it. Or it is next to you on the nightstand. Or it is in your pocket, buzzing, because someone liked a photo you posted of a sunset you did not actually watch because you were too busy photographing it. The smartphone is the rats of this Black Death. But here is the thing about rats in the 14th century. People did not love the rats. They did not sleep with the rats. They did not check the rats 344 times a day. We do. We have built a portal to all human knowledge and connection, and we use it to watch strangers dance for 15 seconds and then we feel worse. We have the Library of Alexandria in our pockets and we are using it to see what our ex is doing and whether they are happy. This is what we traded the dive bar for. This is what we traded the awkward pause for. This is the deal we made. Give me the simulation of connection, and I will give you my actual connections. Give me the idea of friends, and I will abandon my actual friends. Give me followers, and I will surrender my neighbors. And the algorithm said, deal, go outside. I dare you. Not to a destination. Not to pick up the order you placed on your phone. Just outside. To exist in public space. Look at them. Head down. AirPods in. Noise cancelling, because the noise of other humans existing in your vicinity is too much to bear. Eyes glazed, locked on 4 inches of glass, thumbs moving in that little scroll motion that will be the hieroglyphic future archaeologists use to identify our era. I look around and I see ghosts haunting their own lives. They do not want friends. They want followers. They do not want conversation. They want content. They do not want presence. They want proof of presence. They have traded communion for curation. And they do not even know they are dead. The internet promised us connection. Communion. The global village. We would all be together, finally, beautifully, one human family linked by fiber optic cables and good intentions. And for about 15 minutes in 2007, it felt like that might be true. Before the algorithms, before the monetization, before someone figured out that loneliness is profitable. Because here is the thing nobody wants to say. Connected people do not consume. Connected people share. Connected people borrow. Connected people say, hey, do not buy that, I have one you can use. Connected people have potlucks instead of DoorDash. Connected people have couches you can crash on instead of Airbnb. Isolated people spend. Isolated people buy the thing because there is no one to borrow from. Isolated people pay for delivery because there is no one to eat with. Isolated people subscribe to 17 streaming services because the silence is unbearable and the algorithm knows exactly what to suggest next. The algorithm is the new priest. The feed is the new sermon. And we tithe. Oh, we tithe, not in money but in attention, which is worth more than money now. The internet became a church with no congregation. Just millions of people in separate queues, heads bowed, staring at their own personal screens. This is not connection. This is spiritual vending machine. Insert attention, receive dopamine. Insert loneliness, receive the simulation of company. Insert your actual life, receive a curated highlight reel of someone else's fake one. And the worst part? We volunteered for this. No one forced us into the pews. No one made us download the apps. No one held a gun to our heads and said, surrender your Friday nights to Netflix or else. We walked in. We handed over our attention. We said, yes, please, take my evenings, take my weekends, take my capacity for boredom which is actually my capacity for creativity, take it all, just please, please, do not make me sit in silence with my own thoughts. Because the thoughts are too loud now. Because we have been numbed for so long that the feeling is terrifying. Because somewhere along the line, we forgot that the awkward pause is where the real stuff happens. The confession, the admission, the moment where someone says me too and suddenly you are not alone. Here is the truth, and I am going to say it plainly because I am from Brooklyn and we do not do euphemisms. We are killing ourselves, not with guns. Not with drugs. Well, also with drugs. And nobody wants to talk about why. It is because we have created a world where you can go weeks without a single meaningful human interaction and nobody notices. You can disappear into your apartment and the only entity that checks on you is the algorithm, and it checks on you to sell you things, not because it cares whether you are alive. Loneliness is not a feeling. Loneliness is a mortality risk. And we have decided it is normal. We have decided that spending your Friday night alone with a screen is self-care. We have decided that the simulation of connection is connection, that followers are friends, that likes are love. And we are dying. Not in the streets, not where anyone can see. In our apartments. In our cars. In the scrolling hours between midnight and 4 a.m. when the loneliness gets so bad you can feel it in your chest like a physical weight. And you think, maybe, that this is just what life is now. This is just what it feels like to be human in the 21st century. No, this is not just. This is not just what life is. This is a plague, and plagues can be fought. The social Black Death is real, and it is killing people I love, and it might be killing you, and I have decided. I have decided that I am not going to let it win. Not without a fight. Not without a pool cue in one hand and a karaoke mic in the other. Not without kicking and screaming. Chapter 2, The Calling. Let me tell you who I used to be. I was the guy in the corner. The observer. The one with the notebook, writing down all the ways the world was broken while Ozzy played through the headphones and the world went on without me. The heavy metal prophet. Voice crying in the wilderness. Emphasis on wilderness. As in, alone in my room, shouting into the void, waiting for the void to shout back. You know what the void does? The void does not shout back. The void absorbs. That is what voids do. That is their whole thing. I spent years being the prophet who tells Babylon how bad Babylon is from a safe distance, writing Jeremiads, composing laments, crafting the perfect critique of everything wrong with modern society while contributing precisely nothing to fixing it. You know what that is? That is comfortable prophecy. That is the prophecy that requires nothing of the prophet except a good vocabulary and a sense of superiority. That is the prophecy that lets you feel righteous without ever risking rejection. The world does not need another writer explaining what is wrong. The world needs a bouncer. Here is how it happened. I was at a bar. One of the last real bars. Sticky floor, Christmas lights year-round, bartender named either Mike or possibly Dave, nobody was sure. And I was doing what I always did. Sitting in the corner, observing, taking notes on the human condition while not participating in it. And this guy walks in, young guy. Late 20s, face like a slapped ass. The look of someone who has not had a real conversation in months. The look of someone whose primary relationship is with his phone. The look of someone in the early stages of the social Black Death. He sits at the bar. Orders a beer, pulls out his phone. And he just stays there. For 2 hours, in a bar full of people, with a pool table 10 feet away, with a jukebox that still takes quarters, with actual human beings all around him. And he stares at his phone. Nobody talks to him. Nobody invites him to play. Nobody does what people used to do in bars, which is acknowledge the existence of strangers and potentially become less strange to each other. And I am watching this. The heavy metal prophet, observer of human folly. And I am thinking, what a perfect metaphor for modern disconnection. I should write about this. And then something happened. I do not know if it was God or the ghost of my grandmother or the third whiskey or just the accumulated weight of watching one too many people disappear into their screens, but I heard a voice. Internal, clear. The voice said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I thought, I am going to write about it. I am going to describe this beautifully and post it somewhere and people will read it and nod and think that is so true and then go back to their phones. The voice said, that is not prophecy. That is journalism. What are you going to do about it? And I realized, in that moment, with the sticky floor under my feet and Springsteen on the jukebox and this lonely kid dying by inches 10 feet away, prophecy without action is just commentary. The prophet does not just name the sickness. The prophet heals the sick. And in that moment, John Zerga, the heavy metal prophet, the observer, the writer of laments, got up from his corner, walked over to that kid, and said, "Hey. You play pool." He did not, as it turned out. He was terrible, scratched on the brake, held the cue like a man trying to strangle a snake. Did not matter. For 2 hours, that kid was off his phone. For 2 hours, he was a person among people. For 2 hours, he laughed. Badly, nervously at first, but actually, at his own terrible shots. He learned that you call the pocket. He learned that you do not hit the cue ball into the corner like a goddamn animal. He learned that strangers can become something else, something more, something like friends, if you just show up. If you just reach out. If you just say the terrifying words, "Hey, you play pool." That night, I understood my calling. Not to save souls for the afterlife. To save Saturday night for the living. I am the social prophet now. The theology has not changed. Still believe in God, still believe in truth, still believe that love is the answer to questions we have not figured out how to ask yet. But the method has changed. The method is aggressive hospitality. The method is refusing to let people disappear. The method is dragging them, kicking and screaming if necessary, back to the land of the living. The method is a pool cue, a karaoke mic, and an absolute unwillingness to let the plague win. Chapter 3, the Philosophy. Here is where I need to talk about Socrates, not the Socrates of philosophy class. The marble bust, the abstract questions. I am talking about the actual Socrates. The one who did not sit in a cave journaling about truth. The one who went to the agora, the public square, and bothered people. Socrates walked up to strangers. He asked uncomfortable questions. He forced people to examine their assumptions. He was, by all accounts, deeply annoying, and they killed him for it. But here is the thing they do not tell you in philosophy class. Before they killed him, he changed lives. Read Plato's dialogues. Socrates had friends, real friends, people who loved him, who gathered around him, who wept when he drank the hemlock. He built community through confrontation. He created connection through discomfort. The modern self-help movement has inverted this completely. Today it is all about going inward. Meditation apps, journaling prompts, self-love affirmations in the mirror. And look, some of that is fine. Some of that is necessary. The examined life and all that. But Socrates did not stop at examining his own life. He examined everyone's life. He took what he learned in reflection and brought it out into the world. He thought, and then he acted. He reflected, and then he engaged. Plato called this the warrior philosopher. The person who does not just contemplate truth but fights for it. In public, with other people, at personal risk. Jesus did the same thing. He did not sit in the desert forever. He went 40 days, yes. Reflection, preparation, wrestling with demons. But then he came out. He went to the places he was not wanted. He ate with tax collectors and prostitutes. He flipped tables in the temple. He healed the sick, cast out demons, raised the dead. And he did it all in public, with witnesses, building a community of misfits and outcasts who would carry the message forward after he was gone. Martin Luther King Jr. did the same thing. He reflected. He prayed. He studied Gandhi and Thoreau and the prophets, but then he marched. He went to Birmingham. He went to Selma. He put his body where his beliefs were. The pattern is consistent across every tradition. Reflection followed by action. Thought followed by engagement. Internal work followed by external presence. The modern self-help movement wants to skip the second part. It wants the comfort of reflection without the risk of engagement. It wants you to love yourself in the mirror but never test that love in the world. That is not philosophy. That is spiritual masturbation. Here is the secret that Prozac does not want you to know. The best antidepressant is being useful, not feeling useful. Actually useful, pragmatically, tangibly, demonstrably helpful to another human being. You go out into the world not to escape your problems but to solve someone else's problems. And in solving their problems, using your experience, your knowledge, your presence, something happens. The demons quiet down, the weight lifts, the spiral stops. This is not mystical. This is mechanical. When you are focused on your own problems, you are stuck in a loop. The same thoughts, the same fears, the same patterns, circling endlessly, but when you focus on someone else's problems. Really focus, really listen, really try to help. The loop breaks. You are outside yourself. You are in someone else's head. You are problem solving with your mind instead of drowning in it. And here is the miracle. Your experience becomes medicine. That terrible thing that happened to you. The divorce, the addiction, the loss, the failure. That is not just your burden. That is your qualification. That is the credential that lets you say to someone else, I have been there. I survived. Here is what I learned. The wound becomes the healing, but only if you go out. Only if you engage. Only if you take the internal and make it external. That is the doctrine of utility. Be useful, be present, be helpful, and in helping, be healed. Now, let me be clear about something. I am not telling you to go into the world naive. The world has predators. The bars have predators. The coffee shops have predators. Anywhere humans gather, there will be those who exploit the gathering. This is why you need to know things. I spent years studying psychology. Not to manipulate people but to recognize manipulation. I learned about narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. I learned the signs, the patterns, the techniques, not so I could use them. So I could see them coming. Knowledge is armor. When you understand how manipulation works, you cannot be manipulated. When you recognize the love bombing, the gaslighting, the triangulation, the devaluation, you can name it. And naming it breaks its power. This is also how you help others. Someone comes to you and says, this person in my life is doing this thing, and I do not understand why I feel so crazy. And because you have done the reading, because you have studied the patterns, you can say, that is gaslighting. Here is how it works. Here is why you feel crazy. You are not crazy. You are being manipulated. That is a gift. That is utility. That is your knowledge becoming someone else's liberation. So yes, go out into the world. But go out informed. Go out educated. Go out with your eyes open and your pattern recognition activated. The goal is not to be paranoid. The goal is to be prepared. Chapter 4, The Theology. Let me tell you about the modern heresy. It goes like this. Inconvenience is the enemy. Every app, every service, every innovation of the past 20 years has been designed around one goal. Remove the friction. Make it seamless. Make it smooth. Dating apps remove the friction of approaching a stranger. You never have to risk walking up to someone, heart pounding, palm sweating, and discovering that they are not interested. Delivery apps remove the friction of restaurants. You never have to sit in a space designed for communal eating, surrounded by strangers engaged in the same fundamental human activity. Remote work removes the friction of coworkers. You never have to make small talk. Never have to navigate the complex social dynamics of shared space. We have removed the friction. We have made everything smooth. We have optimized for efficiency, for convenience, for the path of least resistance. And we are dying alone in unprecedented numbers. We have created a frictionless world, and it turns out friction was the thing keeping us alive. Friction is where the stories come from. Friction is where the friendships form. Friction is the resistance that builds the muscle. You know what has no friction? A void, a vacuum, nothing. We have optimized ourselves into nothing. Friction is holy. The awkward encounter is holy. The unexpected conversation is holy. The risk of rejection is holy. The moment when you walk into a room and you do not know anyone and you have to figure it out. That moment is where your humanity lives. That moment is the muscle. That moment is the thing we have systematically, algorithmically, profitably removed from modern life, and I am here to put it back. With force, if necessary. Now, here is where I need to address something directly. I grew up Italian. My godfather lived past 100. He always had a jug of wine around. Homemade, terrible by any objective standard, absolutely perfect by every standard that mattered. He would have a glass or two a day. Never more, never less. It was part of life, like bread, like family, like Sunday dinner that lasted 4 hours because nobody was in a hurry to leave. That is not what American culture does with alcohol. American culture, especially in certain regions, especially in the Bible Belt, does this weird binary thing. Either you do not drink at all, because drinking is sin, because one sip leads to damnation, or you drink to obliteration, because if you are going to sin, you might as well sin hard. This is insane. This is not how healthy cultures have related to alcohol for thousands of years. The Buddha called it the middle way. Aristotle called it the golden mean. The Mediterranean cultures just called it Tuesday. You do not have to get wasted to be social. You do not have to avoid bars entirely to be virtuous. You can go out, have a couple drinks, take the edge off, talk to people, and go home sober enough to remember the conversations you had. The goal is not intoxication. The goal is lubrication, just enough to lower the social anxiety, to quiet the inner critic, to make it easier to say, hey, you play pool. To a stranger. If you are in recovery, this calculus is different. If alcohol is your demon, avoid the bars. But find the other third places. The coffee shops, the pool halls, the venues with live music. The principle is the same. Go where the people are, in whatever form that takes for your particular situation. The point is presence, not substance. Let me tell you about sacred space. It is not just the dive bar. The dive bar is my temple, but it might not be yours. Sacred space is anywhere that humans gather with friction, without agenda, for the purpose of being among each other. The sociologist Ray Oldenburg called these third places. Not home, not work, but the informal public gathering spots where community happens. The barbershop, the coffee shop, the pub, the park bench. Every healthy society has them. Every dying society loses them. America has been systematically destroying its third places for 50 years. The bowling alleys closed. The diners became drive-thrus. The coffee shops became laptop farms where human interaction is actively discouraged. The churches emptied. The union halls disappeared. The places where strangers became neighbors. Gone. This is not an accident. This is an economy that profits from isolation. But the third places are not completely dead. You just have to look for them. In the dive bar, there are no VIP sections. No bottle service. No algorithm deciding who is worthy of your attention. There is a bar. There are stools. There is a selection of alcohol that ranges from adequate to this will make you blind. And there are people. Actual people. Not profiles. Not avatars. Not curated versions with good lighting. People with bad breath and strong opinions and stories you did not ask for but are going to hear anyway because that is what happens when humans share space. In the dive bar, we observe the sacrament of the shared pitcher. You cannot drink from a shared pitcher without cooperation. Someone has to pour. Someone has to wait. Someone has to say, no, you first. There is a whole social negotiation, a micro-communion, in the simple act of distributing cheap beer into glasses. You cannot DoorDash community. You cannot Uber Eats belonging. You cannot order the feeling of being one among many, engaged in the ancient ritual of shared consumption, from an app. Every dive bar has a bartender. The bartender is the priest. The bartender has heard everything. The bartender judges nothing. The bartender understands that humans sometimes need to say words out loud to another human, not for advice, not for solutions, but just to have the words received. My wife left me. And the bartender nods and pours and does not try to fix it, because some things cannot be fixed, only witnessed. This is confession. This is the ministry of presence. This is what the therapist charges $200 an hour for and what the dive bar provides for the cost of a Budweiser and the willingness to sit at the rail. And here is the miracle. The drunk stranger next to you at the bar might become your friend. Not your friend in quotes. Not your follower. Not someone you occasionally interact with via heart-shaped reactions to their posts. Your friend. Someone who knows your name. Someone who asks how your mother is doing. Someone who, when you do not show up for 2 weeks, actually notices. Actually asks. Actually cares. This is what the dive bar offers. This is the sacrament. Go forth, my children. Find the sticky floor. Find the Christmas lights. Find the bartender named Mike or possibly Dave. And be present. I need to tell you about karaoke. Not karaoke the Instagram story. Not karaoke the thing you post about doing. Karaoke. The actual standing in front of strangers and singing words you barely remember to music that is slightly off-key while a screen with stock footage of beaches plays behind you. Karaoke is humiliating, that is the point. Listen to me, that is the point. You cannot do karaoke with dignity. You cannot sing Total Eclipse of the Heart with your carefully curated persona intact. Karaoke strips you. Karaoke takes the mask off. The false self protects the true self by making sure the true self is never seen. We walk around in masks. The professional mask, the social media mask, the I am fine mask. After decades of masks, many of us cannot find the face underneath. We have become our performance. And when the mask comes off, when you are standing there, voice cracking on the high note, absolutely murdering I will always love you in front of people you barely know, something happens. The walls come down, not just yours, everyone's. Because here is the secret about karaoke. Nobody is judging. Nobody is sitting there thinking, wow, this person is really bad at singing. Everyone is sitting there thinking, oh God, I am up next. What song did I pick? Why did I pick that song? Am I going to throw up? Karaoke is shared vulnerability. And shared vulnerability is the only thing that creates real bonds. You cannot become real friends with someone's mask. You can only become real friends with the person behind it. Karaoke rips the mask off. Karaoke is exorcism. When you sing, badly, desperately, standing in front of strangers with nothing to protect you, you are casting out the demon of curation. You are purging the spirit of perfection. You are saying, with your whole cracking voice, here I am. Not the version I post. Not the version I perform, me. And the congregation, drunk, supportive, waiting for their turn to be humiliated, the congregation receives you. That is church. That is the real church. Chapter 5, the battle here is what nobody wants to talk about in the age of safety ISM. Rejection is a skill. Not handling rejection. Rejection itself. The act of being rejected. The experience of putting yourself out there and having someone say no, this is a muscle. If you do not use it, it atrophies. And America has been on bed rest for 20 years. Dating apps have removed the risk of rejection. You only see people who have already indicated interest. Social media has removed the risk of rejection. You curate your posts for maximum approval. You can delete anything that does not perform. And now we are all walking around with zero rejection tolerance. The slightest social setback feels catastrophic. A left swipe feels like annihilation. An unreturned text feels like proof of our fundamental unworthiness. This is pathetic, not as an insult. As a diagnosis, we have become incapable of the most basic human social function. Risking rejection and surviving it. You want to know the cure? Get rejected, on purpose, repeatedly, systematically. Walk up to someone at a bar. Get shot down, survive. Walk up to someone else. Get shot down again, survive again. Ask someone on a date. Hear no. Notice that you are still breathing. Pitch an idea. Watch it get dismissed. Notice that you still exist. Apply for the job. Get passed over. Notice that the sun came up the next day. You cannot make an omelet without breaking some eggs. You cannot build social skills without risking social failure. Every rejection you survive makes you stronger. Every no you hear makes the next approach easier. This is true for men. This is true for women. This is true for everyone. Yes, be respectful. Yes, read signals. Yes, take no for an answer when no is given, but also take the shot, make the approach, risk the rejection. The alternative is dying alone, and that is not safer. That is just slower. Here is the thing about saving people from themselves. They do not want to be saved. They want to be left alone. They want to stay in the apartment. They want to tell you they are tired and not really feeling it and maybe next time. There is no next time. There is only the slow, comfortable slide into the social black death. And so the social prophet does not ask. The social prophet does not suggest. The social prophet does not send a text that can be easily ignored. The social prophet shows up. Get dressed. We are going out. But I do not care. Put on pants. Real pants, not the sweatpants you have been wearing for 3 days. We are leaving in 10 minutes. Now, I need to be clear. This is not advice for strangers. You do not show up at some random person's apartment and demand they come to karaoke. That is not aggressive hospitality. That is a restraining order. This is about the people already in your life. The friend who has been canceling plans. The coworker who used to grab lunch with you and now just eats at their desk. The family member who has retreated into their apartment and their phone. You know them. You have relationship with them. And that relationship is what gives you standing to push. Is this comfortable? No. Might they be annoyed at first? Probably. Is this what they need when they have been swallowed by the isolation machine and cannot find their way out? Yes. Sometimes you have to drag people back to life. Sometimes the hand of fellowship is a hand that grabs you by the collar and pulls. Sometimes love looks like refusing to accept no as an answer. From people you love, who have given you implicit permission through the relationship itself to care about them this much. I have done this. I have shown up at apartments. I have insisted when insistence was needed. And you know what? Every single time, at the end of the night, they thank me. I needed that. I did not know how much I needed that. Of course you did not. The plague makes you think the plague is normal. The isolation makes you think isolation is choice. The social Black Death convinces you that you want to be dead. You do not. You just forgot what living feels like. Let me remind you. There is a reason I chose pool. Pool requires presence. You cannot play pool while looking at your phone. The geometry will not allow it. The physics demand your attention. The cue ball does not care about your notifications. When you are standing over the table, calculating angles, feeling the weight of the stick in your hands. You are there. Not performing there. Not documenting there. Not half there while the other half scrolls. There. Present. Embodied. The crack of the break is the bell waking you from the trance. That sound. That sharp, violent sound of balls scattering. That is the sound of the spell breaking. The algorithm cannot reach you at the pool table. The feed has no power here. There is only the felt, the pockets, and the question of whether you are going to sink the 8-ball or scratch like an amateur. Pool is meditation for people who would never meditate. Pool is presence for people who have forgotten what presence feels like. Pool is church for people who have been burned by church. And the social prophet keeps quarters in his pocket at all times. Not everyone wants you to come back to life. There are forces, institutional, cultural, economic, that profit from your isolation. That benefit from your loneliness. But beyond the algorithms and the platforms, there are human collaborators. The safety police. You know them. They are the ones who say, actually, karaoke is problematic because. They are the ones who have decided that any social friction is harassment. They are the ones who have made fun illegal. They appear in HR departments, in comment sections, in the friend group that has been so thoroughly captured by safety ISM that suggesting going outside is treated as an act of aggression. What if someone does not want to go to the bar? Then they do not have to come. But I am going to ask. I am going to keep asking. I am not going to let the possibility of rejection prevent me from reaching out, which is exactly what the safety police want. A world where no one reaches out, no one risks, no one imposes their presence on anyone else, and we all die alone having never inconvenienced each other. That is not safety. That is a cemetery with Wi-Fi. I declare war on the safety police. I declare war on the boring dystopia. I declare war on the forces, human and algorithmic, that have decided social friction is the enemy rather than the cure. The social prophet is not safe. The social prophet is disruptive. The social prophet will absolutely ruin your quiet night at home, and you will thank him for it later. Chapter 6, the morning after you wake up, your head hurts. Your mouth tastes like regret. There are vague memories of singing something by Journey and meaning it way too much. This is penance, not punishment. Penance. There is a difference. Punishment is suffering without purpose. Penance is suffering that marks the passage. That says, something happened here. Something real. The hangover is the body remembering it exists. You cannot have a hangover from scrolling. You cannot wake up with a headache from too much Instagram. The algorithm takes everything and leaves nothing. Not even pain. Not even evidence. The hangover is proof. Proof you showed up. Proof you participated. Proof you were there, in your body, doing the stupid and sacred human thing of being among others and drinking too much and singing too loud. The hangover hurts. Good, it means you are alive. But here is the real test. The real resurrection is not surviving the hangover. The real resurrection is the text you send the next day. Hey. Last night was fun. Same time next week. That is the moment. That is the leap. That is the terrifying act of faith that the safety police have made almost impossible. The willingness to reach out again. To risk rejection again. To say, essentially, I liked being with you. I want to do it again. Please. Please. That is the word we have forgotten. Please, let me into your life. Please, let us do this again. Please, do not let this be a one-time thing that we both enjoyed but never repeat because neither of us has the courage to ask. The social prophet teaches you to send the text. The social prophet models the vulnerability. The social prophet sends 20 texts a week that say, "Hey, you free, let us do something." Some go unanswered. Some get polite rejections. Some get enthusiastic yeses. Does not matter. What matters is the reaching. What matters is refusing to let the isolation win. What matters is demonstrating, over and over, that connection is worth the risk. That rejection is survivable. That the awkward pause is not death. That human beings were made for each other, and the plague is lying to you, and there is another way. I have a vision. I see a world where the social Black Death recedes, not because we found a vaccine. There is no vaccine for loneliness except each other, but because enough crazy people decided to start showing up. Start reaching out, start dragging their neighbors back to the land of the living, one karaoke night at a time. I see third places full again. Dive bars and coffee shops and pool halls and venues with local bands, not with people staring at phones, but with people talking. Arguing, laughing, discovering that the stranger next to them is actually interesting, actually worth knowing, actually a human being instead of a profile. I see pool tables occupied. Karaoke nights packed, pitchers poured and refilled and shared again. I see the walls coming down. I see the masks coming off. I see us. Broken, lonely, scrolling us. Remembering what it felt like to belong. This is the vision of the social prophet. This is the gospel of the 8-ball. This is the good news I am preaching, from every sticky floored pulpit, with a cue stick in one hand and a microphone in the other. You do not have to die alone. You were not meant to die alone. The plague is real, but so is the cure, and the cure is each other, and I will drag you kicking and screaming to the cure if I have to. Put down the phone. Pick up the mic. Rack the balls. Find the sticky floor. Find the Christmas lights. Find the other ghosts who are ready to become real. We are going out. The social prophet has spoken. Could I spent 40 years learning to see, and what I saw was this. We are a species that would rather die connected to nothing than live connected to each other. I watched us build cathedrals of convenience and call them progress, watched us optimize the friction out of our encounters until our encounters became frictionless, which is to say, nothing. Because friction is where the heat is, where the light is, where two surfaces meet and something happens. I was the prophet in the wilderness, which is a fancy way of saying I was alone with my opinions and my Aussie records, shouting truth at a void that absorbed everything and returned nothing. And then one night, on a sticky floor, under Christmas lights that had no business being up in March, I understood. The prophet who only names the disease is just a coroner with better vocabulary. The prophet who heals the disease has to get his hands dirty. Has to walk over to the stranger. Has to risk the awkward pause, the rejected invitation, the humiliation. Of singing Don't Stop Believin' in front of people who will remember how badly he sang it. I am not calling you back to some nostalgic past that never existed. I am calling you back to the permanent human truth that we are not meant to be alone, that the algorithms are lying when they say connection can be curated, that the feed is lying when it says you are seen, that the silence in your apartment at 3 a.m. is telling you something your phone will never tell you. You are dying for lack of presence, and presence cannot be downloaded, only encountered, only risked, only given and received in the terrifying, holy, friction-laden space where two actual human beings occupy the same room and decide, against all the forces of convenience and cowardice and curated safety, to acknowledge each other. Socrates died for this. He went to the public square and asked questions until they made him drink poison. But before the poison, there were the conversations. Before the hemlock, there were the friends. Jesus died for this. He went to the places he was not wanted and loved people until it killed him. But before the cross, there was the table. Before Golgotha, there was the upper room, and the breaking of bread, and do this in remembrance of me. Martin Luther King Jr. died for this. He marched until they shot him. But before Memphis, there was Montgomery. Before the balcony, there were the buses and the bridges and I have a dream. The pattern is clear. Reflection, then action, thought, then engagement, internal work, then external presence. The self-help gurus want to keep you in the first part forever. They want you journaling until the end of time, meditating yourself into a coma, loving yourself in a mirror while the world burns outside your window. That is not wisdom. That is hiding. The gospel of the 8-ball is not a metaphor. The 8-ball is the last ball. The game ender, the one you sink or scratch on. I am telling you. We are on the 8-ball now. The game is almost over. And you can stay in your apartment, scrolling, waiting for the algorithm to save you. Or you can put down the phone, pick up the cue, and take the shot, miss if you have to. Scratch if you must, but for the love of God and the sake of your own soul, play the game, the table is waiting. The strangers might become friends. The night might become a story you tell for years, and the alternative. The safe, curated, frictionless alternative, is a slow death that does not even have the decency to announce itself. I have made my choice. I am at the bar. I have got quarters in my pocket. The question is, are you coming, or are you going to let the plague win? And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more scrolling. Revelation 21. 1. Zerga translation. End of Gospel. Copyright 2026 John Zerga Jr. All rights reserved. A note on crisis resources. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please reach out. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Call or text 988. Crisis text line. Text home to 741741. SAMHSA National Helpline. 1-800-662-4357. The social prophet wants you alive. Get help if you need it. The bar will still be there when you are ready.